So now, post-school, what is your workload like? Are you working independently? Are you working as an associate for people? Is it both? What's the balance like? And, let's start there. Yeah, what's your workload looking like?
Okay, so I graduated 2022 last year, and then moved to New York like 3 days after graduation, because I was like, we gotta go. And I had no work lined up. We had a portfolio showcase in New York, 5 days after graduation, and I didn't want to go back and forth, so I was like, I'm gonna move in between, which was crazy. I don't recommend that. And so at the portfolio review, I met a woman named Jenny Stanjeski, who's the head of the paint shop at Juilliard. And she was like, you seem cool. And then they were like, have you heard of the Juilliard Apprentice Program? And I said, no, what is that? And they said that the application deadline had just been extended and I should apply, but it closed in 3 days. And I was like, okay. So I looked it up, and Juilliard has an apprenticeship program that is for an entire school year. A lot of the people in it just finished undergrad. It's a really good in-between step. And it is a full-time job, 40 hours a week, doing theater, which is really hard to find for the production areas in New York. And I was like, this looks like a way to be financially stable for my first year in New York and make sure I have a paycheck every week, and a really great learning opportunity to get established in New York. Because also one thing about costume design that is really important in New York but not other places is the garment district and knowing how to navigate it and swatch. And in Pittsburgh, you go to Joann's. I was like, I don't know how to do anything in the garment district, so I was like, I want to learn about that. So I applied to this program and I got in, and I did the apprenticeship for the past year, which was my main source of income because I was working there full time. But it was a really, really great way to get integrated into New York without being super stressed about constantly finding money and just freelancing immediately, because I didn't know that many people here specifically. So I did that to be financially stable and also to gain new mentors, meet new people in New York. And now I am officially out of that program and freelancing. But I've already had 2, 3, 4 jobs since graduating that program in May, and all of the people that I have gotten jobs from, I met through Juilliard or Carnegie Mellon, and it was all just about timing. They were like, once you're done with Juilliard, let me know, and then I met someone and they were like, I'm recommending you to this other person, and now I'm working for them. And so I think that meeting as many people as you possibly can is really, really important, because that is how you will get work. And you might not have steady work back to back to back as a freelancer, but it's good to utilize all of your talents. So I don't particularly love film and TV, but you make really good money doing it. And one thing I do is I know a lot of people in film and TV, and when they need an extra person to come in and just do all their Amazon returns, I'll come and do that for 3 days and make more than I make in a week doing theater. But it's a great way to add and figure out, balance all my paychecks in between things. And it's easy, and it's good money, and I literally am packaging boxes, and it's kind of nice to turn off my brain in between things every once in a while. You can make money. I also, when I graduated, I got a scholarship from our alumni association at Carnegie Mellon that was meant for graduating seniors to help them move and get established in the city. So that was how I supported myself for my first month out of school, was just through this scholarship, and that's how I moved to New York and everything. And I took a mandatory month off between graduating and starting any more jobs based on my therapist saying take a break. And that was really important after undergrad because I was burnt out. And I definitely recommend taking breaks. And it's hard when you're freelancing because you feel like you have to say yes to everything because you don't know when the next job's gonna come. But also you have to build in breaks and be like, I'm going on vacation that week. I am not available for work, because otherwise you're never gonna go on vacation. You're never gonna take a break. And you just have to learn that balance. And I'm still finding that balance because I'm still starting out as a freelancer. But like finding the flow of things and figuring out the people that you can get steady work from versus random people that you really want to work with and you're just going to keep emailing them in between things and being like, I'm free right now. And also follow everyone you know on Instagram that does theater, because I literally see designers post like, I need someone to work for me this week. Is anyone free? On their Instagram story, and you can get a job like that. Like it's dumb. And also, if you are not having work, I make it very known when I'm unemployed, so that if anyone is looking for someone, they're like, oh, she's free. That's how you get a job. Like, just make it very obvious, like all the time, what your availability is.
You've made some great points there, specifically taking breaks. That is something that like I can also attest to. And y'all know how exhausted you are after this 1 week. That's 1 week, you know? So imagine that, like now 51 more weeks, and that's just 1 year in New York. So like, yes, taking breaks is absolutely essential. You will run yourself ragged, and then you're not really useful at all if you're not whole and healthy and have your head screwed on right. You also got to a point that I appreciate, talking about finances. And I know we have some parents in the house, hey. And so that's probably a question folks have, like, how do you make a living? Do you make a living? So I'm gonna tack that on to this as well. What is your work like? Are you freelancing? Are you associating? And then do you make a living? And how? How do you pay your bills?
It's hard. At least in my experience, so like I said, I graduated undergrad 7 years ago. Right out of undergrad, I was doing freelance jobs, and it was one of those, hey, would you like to design a show in this basement? We're gonna pay you $300. It's gonna require you to do everything for about 3 months of your life, and you know, it's really good resume. It's a really good line in your resume. And it's hard because like, you do feel like you have to say yes to everything when you're a freelancer and right out of undergrad. And I think that it's very hard, and there are a lot of hardships. But also in those kind of like scary hardships is when you grow and when you kind of learn more about what it is that you really want or what you need out of something. And like 6 months out of undergrad, I did an internship program, which also was being paid $500 a month for 60 to 80 hours worth of work a week. I don't think it's legal anymore. I don't think it was legal then. But after 6 months of that internship, I also did, while also still doing, you know, freelance work on the side, I was then hired in that design firm that then I was at for another 2 years after that. And I was an assistant designer for that time. I started to manage the internship program at that place at that time. And it was all great because I then started to make like income, and there was a constant amount of money. I stopped to take freelance jobs because I was then just doing this thing. And although it wasn't fulfilling me artistically, I was making enough money that I could then focus on growing as a human. That then allowed me to realize maybe this isn't what I want to do. So it is kind of a balancing act. But making money in a job that you have to do in order to be a human allows you to grow to be a human, to then kind of bring you back into finding what it is that you want to do. And so after that whole experience, I decided to go to grad school. And that was the place where, like, we had learned from going into undergrad, going into predominantly white institution, get to know the people there and like really use those resources. And being in grad school during the pandemic was when I discovered Design Action, which is honestly what I owe my entire career to at this point, because that was where I met David Zinn and Clint Ramos, and also the people that I've met in my grad school. And through there, like that is now how I have gotten jobs. Like, knowing Clint has allowed me to be an assistant, an associate, eventually join the union, eventually designed a show with Clint in New York, and that was like my first job out of grad school. And it is still a balancing act of like being a human outside of your job, because it is true, like you do need breaks. And I think that one of the biggest things that I learned in that toxic environment that I worked at before grad school was that your self-worth is not who you are as your job. And that was the biggest thing that I learned, that then allowed me to really, I am not, like, even if I fail as an artist, that is not who I am as a person. And so it is an ongoing lesson, even for me to this day, to divide who my life self is and who my work self is. And with theater, it's so hard because it's such a blurry line. But you are still a human, you do still need to make money, and you do still need to make a living. So it is an ongoing balancing act, and it's hard. But
That makes me think of a quick phrase that my friends and I used to say in college, but it actually resonates. I am not my resume. I am not my resume. And we used to say it jokingly, but then at some point we were like, no, that's real. That's real. I'm a whole person outside of this career.
I would love to talk about this because I think I'm also going to use it as the opportunity to talk about like being a multi-hyphenate and like doing multiple things. I recently graduated, but I had started working in school just because I think I got to a point where I kind of felt like I had learned everything I could at Fordham, and I had designed enough shows to where I was like, I'm just going to keep designing, let me go outside and learn. And so while I was in high school, I got to, establish a relationship with a local a high school, the Performing Arts High School here in New York, and I started to design there in college, and I still design there. And I did a show right after graduation in June. And so I think I didn't realize that also designing within educational opportunities can be like a twofold thing, because you get to like help teach younger people, but you also are making a living and getting to practice your craft. And so I definitely recommend that. And even just like, I think I designed a show at Barnard and I was still in school. So I was working professionally at another university while still being in university. And so, and I will say, like, some people may discourage you from working while in school. I think it's a good thing. I think definitely not the first 2 years, but the second 2 years, start working, because you're gonna appreciate it to have those connections, rather than, the day after you graduate saying, who do I call, who do I go to? I was also lucky enough to win this year's Howell Binkley Fellowship through Hemsley. Thank you. Thank you. And so I will be spending the next 4 months basically just doing like an assistant/associate boot camp. I'm doing 4 shows in 4 months in 5 locations around the country. Yeah. And so it's crazy. I leave August 14th. I'll be in La Jolla, California, and then I go to Baltimore, and then Jersey, and then Kentucky, and then Cleveland. And so I can't actually speak a lot to assistant and associate work because I haven't done enough. I've honestly been just designing at a lot of small theaters. But I also work in film. And I will say, like, being able to also work in film is where I make the majority of my money, because it's literally that, where I'll work a gig for 4 days and that pays as much as a show that takes me a month and a half. And honestly, it's a little sad because some of it is, like, a lot of it isn't artistically fulfilling, but it can be. And I think realizing that sometimes the fulfillment doesn't come from the project, but the people in the room is also really important. And so I can be on like the worst project in terms of like the content of the show, but if it's really cool people, like that's actually all that matters, because I'm still making those connections and I can then create with them after. And so I do a lot of film gigs. I work at a place called Spring Studios, which is a shoots and events space in Tribeca. We do like Vogue events and like random things. I am a PA for Condé Nast, and they like own Vogue and do like the Bon Appetit cooking shows on YouTube, and like I did like a knife video yesterday, so like random things. But I think being able to like have your hands in every possible. Like if you're interested in something outside of design, like pursue that with design, because that's how you're going to be able to like piece together the puzzle of how to make a living. Like I actually don't know if I will be able to make a living off of just lighting design. I'll see in the next 4 months. But being able to do film and theater, I'm definitely able to make a living. So I would recommend that. And yeah, even just like directing, you know, I'm gonna do a directing gig next year. It's like any opportunity you get, just take it. And it will help you with where you wanna be.
Yeah, I think it is difficult, but possible. I have had many internships, more internships that I want to wish on anybody or recommend anybody ever take in their life. I feel like I thought that I needed them. I was always like afraid to just move to New York. I didn't know very many people. I was afraid to like try out freelancing. So while I was in school, I interned at Williamstown Theater Festival. I recommend that when you were very young and new into it, because it's like a really intense and crazy internship, but I learned how to be a professional there, even though you don't really get an off day, and you don't make any money. And then I also interned at the Shakespeare Theater Company while I was in undergrad. When I graduated, I interned there again for a full year, and then I went and interned at a theater company in Memphis. And then I took many, I would meet designers in my time at all these different places, right? And some of them were in New York, and I'd be like, oh, can I come work for you on this show? And they would say sure, but I can only pay you in Metro cards, or you can stay with my kid, but I can't pay you, or something like that. So I was fortunate to have experiences in New York without actually living here, but I definitely wasn't making any money. But yeah, I think because I don't know, everywhere I went, I've never interned in a place ever where there wasn't somebody with the exact same skill set as me that wasn't a person of color, that was making a living wage. And it started to really wear on me and kind of make me sad and jaded, and even feel like maybe this could not happen for me in my life. And that's why I decided to apply for an MFA. I finished undergrad in 2018. But yeah, I felt as soon as I actually was starting to maybe carve some type of possibility of making a living for myself, I got my first New York show, and I was so excited. It was in 2020, and then the pandemic happened. So there was something about feeling like I was getting ready to take off, and then it happened to everybody. But I think I really did feel like I couldn't do anything in this industry without having MFA next to my name. And it felt like it didn't matter how much experience I had on my resume, but for someone to see a young Black woman and not know who she is, and see one name on her resume that looks familiar, it absolutely meant nothing. Even if there was somebody with the exact same resume who wasn't a Black person, yeah.
So I graduated last year, and when I started looking for work, I primarily started doing freelance in props and paints, which also, I just want to say that even if you, I primarily am a set designer, that's what I view myself as, but I also take on work in other areas, so you shouldn't just limit yourself to just one thing. So I do a lot of assistant props, just freelance props, paint work, and that has been able to primarily fund, because that does pay a little bit better, primarily fund any other design projects that I take out of state or even in New York or just with friends. So that's been able to just keep me supported while I continue just trying to build up my portfolio and just make more connections. And it really is just reaching out to people, just making them aware that you're available, as was said before. And just being open, even to just saying, I'm happy to just sit in a room with you and just learn a little bit where I can. And then they'll be able to make more connections for you. And then that will lead to more jobs and more jobs. And it's kind of been like that for me, where I only have applied to a few things. And then that will lead just to open conversation about being oh, I have this project here, I have this project there, I need one person. Even if it's just for a couple of weeks, that starts to pile up, and it'll lead to more work.
I also really quickly want to add that getting jobs is like New York real estate. To compare that, New York real estate is if you are moving to New York or moving somewhere in New York, it all happens within a week or 2 weeks. You figure out, you realize you're moving, you find the apartment, you move into the apartment, and then it's done. But I feel like that's kind of what jobs are like. It's like you just brought up like a really good point, which is that like one job leads to the next and the next and the next. I only had one job like as I was graduating this year, and then after that job, I was like, oh, other designers are looking for assistants, and then after that, they were like, oh, a school is looking for a designer, and it just like happened. So it is also really beneficial to have a little bit of faith, as much as it is scary.
My closing note will be like, don't take unpaid work. Like I think that our industry has been built on a standard of paying your dues and just gaining the experience or gaining the resume builder without making money. And at the end of the day, like we live in a very capitalist society. We live in one of the most expensive cities in the world. You need to make money. You cannot like feed yourself on experience, right? And so I think we're really past that as a society. Like Williamstown for a really long time, like paid people nothing, and now they have to, right? Because laws are changing, and there are enough paid internships. Like I've been able to be in rooms, and even if it's minimum wage, like get paid, get something. Like don't work for free. It's not worth it, and you can find paid work.
Yes, and your rent is not 1,000 exposures a month.
Right. Yes.
If a project is good enough to be on your resume,
They're good enough.
they're
to pay
good
you.
enough to
Correct.
pay you.
That's a
correct.
fact.
Otherwise, they're not good enough to be on your resume.
That's
like
a fact.
That is, yep.
you deserve to be paid for your work.
And
You're talented.
You and Samantha brought up a good point about putting yourself out there, making it known that you're available, you're ready to work. That makes me think of like the old showbiz adage, like it's who you know. Actually, no, it's who knows you. You have to actually put yourself out there. You have to make yourself seen, heard, known. This doesn't mean be phony and fake. It just means genuinely connect with people, take the opportunity to meet somebody, get to know somebody new. You never know when those little seedlings will sprout into something. We have a few minutes left. Do you have any questions for anybody? Any curiosities?
Oh,
Hey.
sorry.
How did you all get like roped into kind of coming and talking to us?
I thought that you said roped in.
I mean, I just showed up to work and they put my name on the list. So.
It's so weird. Like, I mean, Janae and I went to school together, so like she asked me to do it, but also like I've been involved with American Theater Wing now, like since I was a junior in high school. So it's been a few years, and I'm one of the Design Action Advisory Council members. So like I had known that this was happening and was like pushing y'all's Instagram, and so I'm just happy.
Look into Design Action.
Yes.
And if you're a person of color, join Design
Yes.
Action. Like the minute you go to college, like join Design Action. Yeah.
I have a question. Do you feel that the choices that you made and the direction that your life went after college will provide you with a sustainable life? I just asked that because when my daughter decided, like when she got into the theater program at school and she kind of decided that this is what she wants to be, someone told her, well, what's your second job? What's your real job gonna be? And I just kind of feel like that just lit this fire under her that she now's like, I'm gonna just pave the way for me and prove you wrong, pretty much.
So I used to work for admissions at Carnegie, and I gave tours to parents all the time. I got this question a lot. First of all, your child's talented. They will make it. She will make it. And you can make a sustainable living off of this. But also, if you go to college, even if you go to a really intense conservatory program focused on theater, you can still change your mind and do other things because you are still learning very tangible skills there. I know someone that went through the BFA Design and Production program at Carnegie and then changed their mind and got accepted to medical school and is now going to become a doctor. Because a lot of grad schools, you just need good grades in whatever you were doing. And also like the BFA training programs, you're not getting the liberal arts education, but also you are, because in my like production technical classes, I was learning math and I was doing science, and in stage management, I was writing. Like you're still doing all of the liberal arts gen ed, it's just through a theater lens. So even if you change your mind, even if you don't go somewhere, like the education's still worth it. But also you can make it and you will make it. And like, there are so many resources that exist now and that are constantly being made for this group of amazing students. And like, that's what's gonna get you there.
We have time for one more. Hey.
I don't know if it was already asked yet because I wasn't here. Do you think you would be where you are right now if you had taken a gap year before college?
Ooh.
Great.
Everyone's like, oh. Yeah.
I think it's interesting, right? Because a part of that is momentum, and it's who you are as a person. Like, I know if I took a break earlier in my life, I would have lost momentum. Whereas if I had like fully driven through and then kind of waited a little bit till I could take a break, like I know that would, just again, discovering yourself, you will know how you work as a human, that you will realize what you need. I don't think it's a surefire answer. Like, I don't know what I would have done if I took a gap year. But again, I feel like it's dependent on how I see my momentum.
I agree. I feel like if I took a gap year, I'd like to think that I'd be in the exact same place. I think the beautiful thing about art is like when you go to school for it, they're going to look at what you already have and help you build it. So whether you already have like a crazy portfolio, like they're going to meet you where you are and make that bigger, or if you're like starting at level 0, you know what I mean? Like, I think, yeah, I guess if I were to take a gap year, I'm sure it would be like equal amounts of like rest, exploration, and also just trying to like figure out who I am as an artist and like build that craft. So just with that in mind, I do think that like I'd either be here or maybe even like more advanced in my career, because like we keep saying, at the end of the day, it really is about who knows you. And I feel like I'd want to take that time to meet, especially if I was living at home and not paying rent, right? That's like ideal time to really go out and meet artists.
I think also it depends on what you do with the gap year. Because like I think if I had just stayed home, I don't know what I would have done. Like I would just be sitting there. Yeah. But like if I was like, I want to start like learning and trying to work professionally before going to school, or like get like an internship or something, I think that's really beneficial. I think it's also like if you are like contemplating whether to go to like a BFA program, because they are really intense and it is a very linear 4-year path, it's worth it to take a year to figure out if you want it or not, because you don't want to get into it and then be like, actually, I'm panicking now. Like, I think it's worth it to figure it out. And a lot of the people I went to school with took a gap year, like a lot of them. I think it's very common in this industry, honestly.
I think it's a very personal decision. Like, it truly does just come down to who you are, and it's different for everyone. I'm not the biggest advocate of gap years, just because I think, like, there are so many colleges and universities, like, there are ways to go to college and still get what you want out of a gap year, out of the college experience. So, like, if you want to find time to, like, take care of yourself, like go to school part-time, you know what I mean? Or like if you don't want the intense conservatory, you don't know that's what you want to do, like go to a BA, go to community college. Like I think there are ways to start that. Like it is about momentum. And I think I've personally seen a lot of people who have taken the gap year and not gone back. And that can be sad. Some people don't want to go back and then it's fine. Like you just don't want to go to college. But I know people who really wanted to and talk about it still and say, I really want to go back, I really want to go back, and they didn't. And so I think more so finding a way, like think about why you want the gap year, what it's for. If you can't get it at college, take the gap year. If there's a way you can get that at college, do that. And like even with travel, like I know like it's a big thing, like a lot of people want to take a gap year to travel, which is honestly like so weird to me because like study abroad exists, and like go to a program like like go to a program with a really strong study abroad, you know, program. Like I studied abroad, I spent 6 months in Granada, Spain, and I got to travel all around Europe. And I did no theater. Like it was magnificent. I hadn't not done theater since like the 7th, 8th grade, and I got to just completely abandon it and be a person while still taking classes and continuing my education. So I would say before taking a gap year, like think about what you want to get out of it and think about if there's a way you can tailor your college education to fulfill that. And you can always like, so many people transfer nowadays or like change majors. Like you're really not locked into anything. You really aren't. Like as long as you do your best where you are, if you decide you want to be somewhere else, you can get there. And like you can take a gap year. If you start and you feel overwhelmed and you're 2.5 years in, like you can take a semester off and that's fine. So
also theater is life. So like if you take a break from school, you are still living life. And you can always channel that into your work as a theater artist or as an artist, period. because that's kind of what we do anyway. Like, and I'm only like seeing this in parallel of what I've heard of with MFA programs is that most MFA programs take people who have taken a break between undergrad and grad school because you learn how to be a human in that time and allows you to better channel your work as an artist. And I feel like that's translatable to if you want to take a gap year before undergrad, where you can channel that time to grow as a person and apply that to your art. Let that be your selling point when you apply to undergrad.
I think that's a great note to end on right there. Thank you all for your attention, and please help me in thanking our panel. Miranda, Amara, Miguel, Celeste, and Samantha. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Josh.